Okay, good evening and welcome to Sporlitics, where sports and politics mix and mingle. I'm Stacey Johnson. Joining me tonight is Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican, Keith, the constitutional conservative, Stephen, the independent thinker, and my cousin Todd. We have a lot for you tonight. It is a packed show. Tonight, the U.S. Supreme Court is back in session, and today heard arguments in an Alabama redistricting case that could further erode the landmark Voting Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination in voting. We will speak with former Alabama 1st Congressional District candidate Dr. James T. Everhart Jr. about that. And then NASCAR with Stephen as he discusses Chase Elliott's win in Talladega. President Biden and top White House officials, including the Vice President, announced new guidelines and grants to protect abortion and contraception rights today, and said women's rights have already been curtailed since the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade 100 days ago. The National Football League's Players Association fires a doctor and agrees to change concussion protocols as Tua, the quarterback for Miami, because of his injury. Russian President Vladimir Putin looked set to finalize his plans to annex 4 Ukrainian regions today, even as Ukraine pushed back Russian forces on 2 separate battlefield fronts, reducing the amount of seized territory Moscow controls. Meanwhile, President Zelensky spoke with President Biden amid the U.S. sending $625 million in weapons to Ukraine. It's week 5 of the NFL season. We will discuss the top teams, including our Eagles. Former President Trump asks the Supreme Court to weigh in on the Mar-a-Lago classified documents, as Senator Susan Collins says she wouldn't be surprised if a lawmaker is killed amid a rise in threats and Trump's comments. An investigation commissioned by the U.S. Soccer Federation and conducted by former U.S. Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates was released Monday, and it includes revelations that are sure to send shockwaves throughout women's soccer and raise tough questions about accountability and player safety. Trump and the GOP leader support Herschel Walker after hearing about an abortion report. 5 head coaches in college football jobs have opened up just 5 weeks into the new season. There have been openings in Wisconsin, Nebraska, Arizona State, Georgia Tech, and Colorado. After the horrific toll Hurricane Ian took in Florida, its governor, Ron DeSantis, asked for federal help from President Biden, but voted against Hurricane Sandy funding for the state of New Jersey, and Republican Governor Christie on his second day as Congressman back in 2013. Oklahoma public school athletes from kindergarten to college are now required to submit to participate in these athletics a biological sex affidavit. I'm sure Keith has a lot to say about that. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and his wife Ginni Thomas answered questions by the January 6th committee, and the United Nations warns of a global recession as countries race to lower inflation. North Korea conducts its longest range missile test yet, flying over Japan, and more if we can fit it in. First up, always is Stephen and NASCAR to talk about Chase Elliott's win. But real quick, Stephen, let me share my screen so I can play. I want to play. Let's see if I can share my screen. Let me share my screen so I can play the NASCAR win from Chase Elliott, and you can talk about it, okay? Let me pull it up, having a little technical difficulties. Here we go. Here it is.
Number 2, an automatic bid to the next round is on the line for the playoff drivers. And we're underway from Talladega.
You already see Eric Almirola surging ahead, having pushed the 5 car into the lead. But now he takes the lead as well from that outside line. He goes down to the bottom of the racetrack. Watch that outside line. That's how I got the lead. So I'm going to be watching that outside line to continue to move forward. Here they come.
That patriotic paint scheme of the one of Ross Chastain pushed the 10 up front, but now Ross Chastain on the outside fighting for the lead.
Early in this race, Eric Almirola decided not to go up there and block that run. As this race progresses, he would have made a much more aggressive move to prevent that run coming from the outside lane.
And his patience right now is getting some help from that bottom line. Now he moves up into the high groove on the back straightaway. Pretty smart move there, but he can't really block that all day long. Here they come to the outside, side by side for the lead. Chastain with a little gap back to him, so his help's not there. That's going to be good for the bottom groove.
Remember, this is the first time these cars have been on the racetrack in traffic. Yesterday, they ran just qualifying laps, no practice whatsoever.
Good job by Eric, kind of controlling this lead. Move back and forth in front of each line. Whichever one's moving forward, get that information from your spotter, pick it up in the mirror, and get in front of that line. Get the energy from that line to push you forward, help you maintain the speed in your car so you can lead this race.
So I'll just go ahead, Stacy. Was anybody bored by what they just saw? Because I was incredibly bored. What has happened to NASCAR right now is what's going on with sports is everybody's worried about a concussion and nobody's going to – they just followed the leader. They had two sides of the same coin racing the whole time. Everybody's scared. That's Dale Jr. is one of the commentators on there, and he was the one – can you hear me?
Wait a minute. Sorry about that. That was on the YouTube. Go ahead. Sorry about that. Repeat that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was anybody bored when they saw that?
We heard that part.
I was asleep.
Right, exactly. I was asleep too. It's horrible. And they're trying to compete with the National Football League.
Were you sleeping with Keith? Oh, never mind. Go ahead. Just
the problem is right now is everybody has, because of Tua, the quarterback from Miami, everybody's scared to death of a concussion. Right. And Dale Jr. is one of the commentators that you heard on this broadcast. And he retired because of a concussion, but that was way before these new cars. And now you have everybody complaining about the new cars, and these are going to cause so many more accidents, and everybody's in so much peril. It's all a bunch of garbage because nobody has died in NASCAR since 2001, and that was Dale Earnhardt Sr. So, nobody wants anybody to get hurt. Everybody wants everybody to race as hard as they can. Whatever happens, happens. Talladega should have it's a 2.5 mile track. You should have a huge accident somewhere during the race. and you don't want anybody to get hurt. But this is what happens because they're so competitive. All these drivers that are complaining, they all got together and decided we're not going to really race this week. We're just going to go out and have some fun. Everything's cool, and we can't strike. We can't go on strike, so we're gonna just ride and follow each other and chase each other's tail and not really have a good race. And that was horrible for NASCAR because NASCAR needs to compete with the NFL, and they can't. If they do this, they are absolutely encouraging their own demise. And this is a really bad thing for NASCAR. It would be bad in any sport. It's like hockey saying, we're not going to fight anymore. We're not going to fight each other anymore because maybe somebody could get a concussion. No, that's why people go there. People went to see Evel Knievel because he was jumping over stuff and breaking every bone in his body. This is entertainment. This is what people want to see. If you want to do what they're doing this year is flag football for the what do you call it? The All-Star game. They're doing flag football. You know what? If this trend continues, we're going to have flag football. We're going to have cars. They're going to be like Busch Gardens, and they're going to have a rail, and they're going to just be like that the whole time.
Now I'm really getting bored.
It's really boring, and this is what's going to hurt the sport. We want everybody to be healthy. Kurt Busch has been out for months. He's one of the best drivers in NASCAR. He's been out for months with that. Dale Earnhardt Jr. quit the sport before this new car. But what I'm saying is Denny Hamlin's complaining. What I'm saying is they're complaining about this new car and saying the reason people are getting hurt more is because of the new car. It's not. This is what happens in this sport. It's a dangerous sport. Just like the NFL, it's dangerous, and this is what brings people to the seat.
So, Stephen, have you ever raced before? Have you raced before?
Yeah,
I've driven one of these cars. So you've gone at these high speeds before.
Yeah.
How good were you?
I'm pretty decent.
So good enough to be in NASCAR?
I never really took a shot at it, but I think I could have been really good when I was in my early 20s.
But here's your point, Stephen. You have no stake in this game, okay? You're a fan in the stands on television, looking around and saying, "Hey, I want to see maximum carnage. I want to see maximum this. I want to see I demand this.
People driving.
The only stake I have in the game is my attention, right? So it's easy for you to sit there and say, "Hey, this powder puff, it's all this other stuff." You pull into it as if that has anything to do with it. Come on. I mean, yes, people are risk adverse now because you're talking about $1 million brands. It's not Stephen going to a demolition derby down in Henrico County. This is $1 million stuff on the line right here. So, Henrico.
Nobody's there to watch it. If you're competing with the NFL, you don't have a chance. They don't have a chance.
Well, are they really competing with the NFL? Are they really competing against the NFL? Where's the money in NASCAR truly coming from? It's not necessarily coming from you sitting in the stands there.
No, it's coming from sponsorship.
Exactly. So you think sponsorship is going to risk, having their cars smashed up or, looking at a fire? That Dale Earnhardt Jr., that he was a legend in NASCAR. So when he died, you damn right. It's Dale Earnhardt Sr. That's like, senior, sorry. But that's just like Tom Brady getting killed on the football field. If Tom Brady got killed on the football field, do you think there'd be some changes in the NFL? Of course there would be. There are changes because you see what's happening with all this stuff.
You cannot make everything so safe that people can't get hurt. They're gonna get hurt.
Okay, so you have a choice. You have a choice. This is America. You're about choices, right? You can choose not to watch it. You know what's going. I mean, but the cars that are going now, the new cars you're talking about, aren't the same as the ones back in the day. And guess what? People are still watching. People are still betting on these things. There's still going to be money in NASCAR, regardless of whether you complain about it or not. So it's
the racing has been great this year, but not as many people are watching. That's what the problem is. And if a bunch of drivers run their mouths about how bad the cars are, less people are going to watch.
Well, that's the nature of the sport. That's where it's going. Some sports are better than others. Some sports, look at MMA now versus boxing. It's taking the place of boxing because people are more interested in, you're going to see some gamesmanship going on as it continues to grow. So again, maybe it's time for NASCAR to go.
Dangerous than boxing. MMA is so much more dangerous than boxing.
Right. I agree.
That's a cockfight, Aguna.
I agree, but MMA fighters don't get paid as much as
sweet science. That's a cockfight.
Right.
All
and
right.
what happened to
Let me
boxing?
move on.
People started
But you're
getting mad
saying,
at boxing
wait a minute,
and moving
Stacey,
away from
your
it. After they
exclamation
made
point,
millions and
my
millions of
point.
dollars.
You're agreeing with me that people
I'm
want to
agreeing with
see
you to a
it.
certain
You're agreeing.
degree,
People
but I'm
wanna
not. I
see
don't think you can do
MMA
anything about
because
it. I
there's
don't
more
think you
carnage.
complaining about is going to move the needle.
People want to see the MMA because it's more carnage. I'm saying people want to see racing and people racing hard. Not that anybody get hurt, but that you're willing to wreck your car to win the race. That's your
but you know what? How many drivers are going to do that when they get to that level? They're not going to do that. Again, MMA is still fairly young. You're not getting paid as much as these professional heavyweight fighters.
It's a travesty that these guys aren't getting paid. But Dana White in the UFC, he's getting paid. The people that run these fights, it's just like cockfighting. The Rooster didn't make no money. The Rooster don't make no money.
Okay, I got to move on. Thank you.
Like I said,
thank you.
You complaining about it's not going to change, what NASCAR is. They're going to be risk adverse. Most sports are going to be risk adverse. That's just the trend going now.
All right,
these
thank
athletes
you.
are brands.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. But the drivers should not talk about it. They should handle it in-house.
All right. I hope
Good
you can
luck
see
with
this
that.
screen. NFL Week 5. Let me read. This is ESPN.com, NFL Nation. This is, as Aguna would say, thank the Lord, football is back. There's a group of more than 80 writers, editors, and TV personalities evaluated how teams are stacking up through the 4 weeks and named the new number 1 for the second week in a row. So, number 1, Kansas City Chiefs, the week 4 ranking.
Garbage.
They're up. They've got a defensive efficiency at 62.7%, league rank 9th. Number 2, my cousin's team, Chris, the Buffalo Bills.
Where do you get this from?
This is the power rankings. This is the power rankings that came out for ESPN.
From ESPN, yes.
Yeah, but it's not right.
I know.
And let's look at this. Week 2, Buffalo Bills 3-1. The Kansas City Chiefs
3-1.
3-1.
3-1.
Sorry, let me go back up.
Hey, but Stacey, who's 4-0?
Kansas City Chiefs 3-1. I'm coming to them. I am coming to 4-0. Let's look at number 3.
What
4-0. The Philadelphia Eagles 4-0. Week 4 ranking 3. They kind of stayed the same. Their defensive efficiency is 85.7%. The league rank is 1st. Number 4, Green Bay Packers 3-1.
There's no way the Green Bay Packers should be number 4, Stacey.
Green Bay Packers
suck.
They beat Tom Brady, man. Of course, they're going to be up there.
Number 5.
They almost lost to New England with a third-string quarterback.
The 3-1 Miami Dolphins.
Nope.
They went down 1, and they have a defensive efficiency of 46.2. First, let's talk about what the Washington Commanders did. Stephen, we'll talk about your team, and then we will go to the best team out there, the Philadelphia Eagles. Go ahead, Stephen, with the Washington Commanders.
The Washington Redskins.
Hey, nice jacket.
They are the best team.
Oh my gosh.
And because they're undefeated, just like the Eagles. I guess they're 1-1A or whatever, how you want to say it. But they're undefeated as well. This is the way it should be. I don't know what a commander is. I think it's a stupid name.
Man, you guys, hey, look, you can be cavemen all you want. The world has moved on. Go ahead.
And the world has moved on, but you know what? It moved on in the wrong direction. And eventually the world will be turned upside right instead of upside down, and they'll be the Redskins again.
Really?
Okay, can you talk about what they did?
I haven't been wrong yet.
Can you talk about what they did, please? Can you talk about what they did?
What they did was lose.
To who?
But you know what? They kept it competitive up until the fourth quarter. They were playing pretty well. The quarterback is okay. We have some good players. The defense is garbage. But we didn't do terribly bad until the fourth quarter when Dallas got another touchdown on us. So it's a good. I still hold out hope for the Commodes or Commanders or whatever they call them.
I thought you were a Raiders fan. I thought you said you were going to be a Raiders fan. But I think you like complaining.
I am. But as far as, you know what? For 50 years, I was a Redskin fan, And then because of some stupid 20-year-olds, women, I can't be a Redskins fan anymore because they're offended by this by Redskins because they're so stupid. Because they're stupid. If you're offended by Redskins, which it's a Blackfoot man that was on the helmet, his face painted by Blackfoot from the Blackfoot community, they all loved it. The Indians.
Did you reach out to Daniel Snyder and tell him how you feel?
The Washington Redskins.
Did you pick up the phone and
Native
call him
Americans, they love it. The woke community, after the unfortunate
why is it always somebody else's
Floyd, changed everything in this country for the worse.
Why is it always somebody else's
fault? Because there are a bunch of Marxists that have to.
All right, let me say this because he'll just babble on. I'm not offended by.
They're going to be the Redskins.
I'm not offended by the term Redskins.
Man, you're making yourself sound like a Yahoo.
Nor am I offended by the term honky or cracker or redneck. I'm not offended by any of those terms.
I'm not offended by any of those words either, Todd.
But Stephen,
it's not equatable. If
you don't
white
have
people,
the money,
if there was a team,
Stephen, you don't have the money to fill $1 billion stadium or to build one, and you don't have the fan base that can support one.
They don't have the fan base because they haven't won in 30 years.
It's just going to be you on the show complaining about
Aguna. They don't have the fan base because they haven't won in 30 years.
Look, yes, they do, Stephen.
They don't have the fan base because they haven't won. It's not because of the name of the
There's a huge fan base in Northern Virginia, and that's why they're probably going to move to Northern Virginia, by the way. And they're going to pay for it. You can be a stick in the mud. This is what you call being a stick in the mud.
What do they call the Washington?
The world has moved on. You're no longer the Redskins. You are the Commodores or the Commodes. You are what they made you. And again, the NFL, God bless capitalism.
All right.
Direction.
So as you can see, yeah. Wait, no, not yet.
I agree with Stephen to a certain degree.
Oh, I'm sorry, not yet.
But the refs. I mean, I think Washington had over 100 yards and penalties that game, and some of those calls were very suspect. Some of those calls, Cooper Rush had thrown an interception and they called it back because of some type of mysterious pass interference.
Aguna, you're right. The NFL hates the Commanders. And
there's a lot of home cooking going on, and they love the Dallas Cowboys. They love people love to hate them. They're a big market. They love getting their fans worked up
because
that's exactly what happened.
This thing in the middle of the screen.
It's all about the narrative. You're right.
This thing in the middle of the screen is for Nas, and Nas has joined us. And I just wanted us to show you
just when we were going in a good direction.
The Atlanta Falcons, according to this ESPN.com article, are number 21. They are 2-2. They have a defensive efficiency of 37.6%. They're ranked 29th in the league. Nas, you want to comment on your Dirty Birds of the South?
Not really.
Well, sometimes things don't go the way they're supposed to. Man, we're going to try to lose the next few games, but they are ruining our draft pick, man. They out here winning when they're not supposed to. They're keeping games close. Yeah, man, I started smoking cigarettes again because of these Falcons, man. I don't know what to say. It's terrible.
Well, here's the thing.
You have injuries.
They are sneakily good. They are very sneakily. Is that a word? They are actually pretty decent. Now, what happened is they lost their running back, and that's going to be a problem. Yeah. Mariota needs a running game. But Lockett, their receiver, he stepped up. They already had Pitts from Florida. He was already one of the greatest, in my opinion, tight ends in the league. Right. So they actually have some good things going on offense. Well, they had. We'll see what happens because they got a couple of tough opponents coming up. But that was a good win against the Cleveland Browns. And the Cleveland Browns aren't necessarily a powerhouse team, but they are a good team. They're a solid team. So for the Falcons to win that game was pretty good. I mean, they could have won against the Saints week 1. So you're looking at 2-2 at the top of the NFC South when they really could have been like 3-1, one of these top teams. But I'm surprised. Now, if they pull off a win against, I think they play Tampa Bay this week. If they pull off a win against Tampa Bay, you better believe it's going to jump. They're going to jump up. But it's very funny how they won, right? And Tampa Bay lost. So now you have both teams going against each other for the top of that division. So it's going to be interesting.
None of that helps us get Bryce Young. We need to be losing. This is terrible.
man. A lot of times it doesn't even matter who you get. If the NFL wants you to win, they're going to let you win. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. All these guys are all American.
So let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams. Real quick about Keith. Why are you shaking your head?
Because your voice did that thing again, but now it stopped.
Oh, okay.
Keith doesn't like the Rams or the
right,
Chargers.
sorry.
He feels his taxes went towards that $1 billion stadium, and he's getting nothing in return.
What was your team?
All the jobs went
when
to illegal immigrants to build it.
In the 70s and
now
80s.
Keith is mad.
What was your football team?
Oh man, back in those days, man, it was good. I liked, of course, I liked the Jets. Joe Namath, Broadway Joe. Johnny Unitas. I liked all those guys, man. Those guys were real. They were.
I had no idea you were so much older than us.
Yeah.
If he like Johnny U,
my father liked Johnny Unitas.
You need looking at you need to retire, Keith.
Roman Gabriel,
AARP.
Good Lord.
So, let me share this with you. You see the Los Angeles Chargers and that's your team, right? Los Angeles Chargers?
No.
He charges the Rams, but Keith does not support them.
I don't
the
have
Chargers are 2-2.
Stacey, I don't have a team.
Okay, all right. So let's move on to the best team.
Everybody needs a team, Keith.
The best team there is Aguna, the best team ever, Aguna, the team that will win the Super Bowl, Aguna.
Fingers crossed on that one. Yeah, this team, it continues to be an underdog even when they're performing. There are people criticizing their record because of their strength of schedule, but you got to play your schedule, and you are what your record says, regardless of strength of opponents. Again, in the NFL, no matter how we as fans try to assess these teams, any given Sunday, you got All-Americans, you got the premier athletes in the world playing the sport, right? So these guys are no slouches, right? Jaguars, we beat them handedly after being down 14 points. And they're very well coached. They're a good team. Jalen Hurts made a mistake earlier. You bounced back for it. So they showed a lot of character. And the defense is playing phenomenal right now. And again, their secondary is kind of banged up. Slade had to leave the game. But you're looking at the maturation of a team, very young team, a very team that's, got a lot of question marks. They question Jalen Hurts' athletic. I question his athletic ability. I wanted to see if he really put in the work in the offseason to improve on his game. They questioned Sirianni. They remember that first press conference where he couldn't really talk about or articulate what he was trying to say. So he became an instant meme. So you're seeing a team that's actually outperforming expectations. So of course, where do Eagles fans go? They go at higher expectations. But the last several wins have been really good. They haven't trailed a game after the first quarter. They gave up 14 points against a Jags team that had Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback from Clemson, really good, really up and coming franchise first rounder. And they got some really good guys on defense down there. And they were able to bounce back and steadily bounce back. And it started with their defense. The offense took on opportunities from the defense. They got several turnovers. They keep getting at the quarterback. So everyone wants to keep saying, is this team for real? When is the shoe going to drop or whatever? And then the Hurts makes all these mistakes. But he's been playing efficient football. Now in football, anything can happen. Week after week, you can get injuries. It's the male soap opera. But right now, in particular, the Minnesota game, I feel like was a big win because they're still 3-1. The Jags were 2-1 going into they only lost one game. And they lost to the Commodores or the Commanders, but that was week 1, and they actually could have won that game. They took some risk and didn't get it on fourth down. So it was a good team. They're not in the same Jags team from last year. Right. So we'll see. I think the next 2 games for the Eagles are going to be very clear character-building opportunities. You have the Arizona Cardinals, which they're going on the road, got a mobile quarterback. They got some good receivers. Zach Ertz, former teammates playing, and it's on the road in Arizona.
Zach Ertz got picked up by who?
Arizona. So we'll be playing against Arizona this
hilarious
on the road. And then after that, we have the Dallas Cowboys in Philly, right? And Dallas is, they're going this thanks to the Commodores. they're going for the 9th straight division win, and they pretty much own the Eagles. I don't think the Eagles have swept the Cowboys since like 2015 or 16 like that. So we need a win, but B, if we were going to take control of this division and be the team of destiny, we got to take care of business in the next 2 games. We can't slouch out against Arizona, who again is a really good team. They have some firepower. And then we got the Cowboys, who pretty much, if we can dethrone them, we'll shut up a lot of critics around the league. So it's going to be interesting in the next 2 games. But they're playing really good ball. Eagles fans are happy. Even the Hurts haters are happy. So the only thing we really need to work on right now is special teams. And again, we don't necessarily have that Brian Mitchell kick returner, but I think it's good. We've done what we had to do to win games. So we should be number 1 on that list. Now the power rankings are, of course, always disrespectful. And so they're going to keep the Eagles down because they hate the Eagles. They hate Eagles fans. But we'll see. I mean, the chosen ones are Kansas City and the Buffalo Bills this year. So they're going to bump them to the top of that list anytime they can. And the Bills, to their defense, had a huge win against the Baltimore Ravens. Harbaugh should have kicked the field goal. He went for it. He didn't get it. They marched on the field. They kicked the field goal. So they won that game after being up by 17 points. But again, high expectations for the Bills. High expectations for Kansas City. No expectations for the Eagles. So I like this position.
But, my question is, how can we be 4-0? The Bills and the Kansas City is 3-1, and they be ranked higher than us. Are they talking about possible potential? Or are they talking about
We're talking about strength of schedule. Right? So if you look at what the Bills did, they went into LA and beat the reigning champions in LA. So they beat the Rams, which of course the Rams are a 500 team. So it's like, okay, what are we really talking about? Then they went and they beat who they beat? They beat the Rams. I think who's the other team they beat? They beat the Tennessee Titans, which was the number 1 team last year in the AFC. They had the top seed. So you beat the number 1 team in the league, the defending champs, and you beat the top seed from the AFC last year. Okay. Now they lost to a Miami team, which of course Tua is supposed to be up and coming, which they could have won that game. And then they pulled off a good victory against an MVP candidate in Lamar Jackson in the Baltimore Ravens. So, I mean, they're looking at those teams and they're saying, hey, those are more reputable opponents than the Commanders, Detroit, Jags, and
the Eagles. The last
team we beat. I think.
Aguna, I need to ask you a question. Aguna,
Vikings.
I have a question for all.
Do I take Jalen Hurts or Herbert from the Chargers this week?
Hurts. I think Herbert. Who are the Chargers going up against? Who are they playing?
They're on the road at Cleveland. I'm worried about the weather.
So I would only take Hurts because Hurts is still hungry. He'll probably get you a rushing touchdown at some point. He's a dual threat. Cleveland is coming off a bad loss to Atlanta. So they're going to be really out for blood, especially at home in the dog pound against the Chargers. The Chargers haven't really impressed me much this year.
They got too many injuries. They have too many injuries.
They've had a lot of injuries.
Herbert's hurt.
Herbert's kind of nicked up, and I got Eckler as my running back. So he's, he
you guys are talking about fantasy football?
Yeah, we're talking about fantasy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You have to tell everyone you're talking about fantasy football.
Okay, so we're talking about fantasy football. So my team, I have Patrick Mahomes as my quarterback, so I'm starting him, even though they got a pretty interesting opponent coming up. Now, I think they're playing – who are they playing? I think they're
Raiders.
Playing,
Raiders?
Are they playing the Raiders? I thought they play the Bills next week. I think they play somebody.
Oh, you guys
play the Raiders on Monday night.
Okay, so we're running out of time.
Okay.
We're already halfway
into football
the show.
all night. This is great.
I know, but you guys are talking boring about football either. You're not even
we're trying to
Aguna and I are not bored. Hey, Aguna, what's your record?
No, I said your talk is boring.
Okay, so I have two fantasy teams. One is 3-1. I just lost because he had Jalen Hurts, and my other team is 2-2.
My other team is 2-2.
It's a billion-dollar industry now. We care about this fantasy football, sports betting. This is what's driving America's economy right now. This is why they had to raise interest rates.
Okay. Let me say this so we can get off of this. I do think the Eagles are playing really well. And I do believe they might, if they keep doing what they're, what?
Here goes the punchline.
If they keep
Boring. Yeah,
doing
we're waiting
what
for that dumb punchline.
Oh gosh.
I'm glad we don't have to hear it.
Go ahead, Todd. We're waiting. We got you, Todd. And your beard looks very well this evening, by the way.
If they keep doing what they're doing, Stacy, with this crazy laugh, I think they can make it all the way to the Stanley Cup.
U.S. Open, Todd. Come on. They're going for a grand slam.
All right. So we wait for Todd.
Don't worry about the Eagles. I'll take care of them. The moment Jalen has a bad game, I'm going to get on every Eagles website, social media, whatever, and start the Minshew mania. I'm going to start up the fight in between the fan base. So just wait.
You don't have to start that. You don't have to start that, okay? We don't need your trolling capabilities to have that conversation. It's because it's going on right now on Eagles blog. So there's no, you just have to get around.
I don't know.
So according to college football coaching carousel on CBSSports.com, two of the highest profile Big Ten jobs are currently on the table, but only one stands as best available. We're talking about 5 coaches, college football coaches have been fired. And this is only, I think, week 5 or 6, because usually college football is 1 week ahead of the NFL. So this is week 5 or 6 for college football. And you'll see as I scroll down the screen, Wisconsin fired their coach. They're looking for a coach, which they say is unheard of. Then we have Nebraska, Arizona State, Georgia Tech, and Colorado. Nas, do you want to talk about why in the world would the NCAAF have these 5 coaching positions open?
Well, we talked about this before the season started. The NIL deals and alums having more say in how these things are going to go, especially with the amount of money they're putting down, is basically turned into like little super PACs, to put a political kind of spin on it. Like, so yeah, the process is now sped up. The college carousel was already fast. Like guys would get fired two years into a big long-term deal. Now you just got to think about it. With all the money around, the accountability is going to be ridiculous. And then the other part is, you got to remember, some of these alums and fans are so unrealistic and have no idea about what their team should or should not be able to do. So like that Nebraska job is a bad job. Historically great football school. Now they have trouble recruiting outside of the Midwest, and they just really don't have the bodies. So the expectations are really high. And you're probably going to get fired 2 or 3 years into the job. So, yeah, some of these are pretty tough. The Wisconsin one is probably the best one there. But, yeah, we're going to see more and more of this. Coaches getting out of there real fast.
Aguna.
Yeah, and Nas is right. I mean, I think sports in general, from NASCAR all the way to NCAA, the fans have very unrealistic expectations, right? And you have these big schools, these Division I schools that have alumni. They're used to winning. They used to being in the, top 10 conversations, and they're having to compete a lot with these smaller schools now. Some of these players, you got these All-Americans that don't see the field at Alabama, but they could pretty much go to a smaller school and still compete and get exposure. So you got a lot of movement going on. So these big college programs aren't as competitive as they normally are. You can go across the country right now and heavily recruit, whereas, you can hit a bunch of states in one day with these, now that you have social media, now that you have, private transportation, the world has gotten a lot smaller and expectations have gotten higher. And so what you're going to see is these big time programs, again, college football, another $1 billion industry. There's a lot of money to be made. Sports betting is involved, right? So the better your program is doing, the more sponsorship, the more exposure. Not only is it for college recruiting outside of football, but in general, you're going to see these unrealistic expectations in these coaches. Now we're talking a lot of money too. I mean, sometimes if you're talking about the salaries that these coaches are getting, they're going to fish or cut bait fairly quickly if they don't see it going in the right direction, because there is a lot of money on the line here. So it's like a catch-22. But how can you really be in the top? You can't go from a unranked, unseen. You can't go from like a Vanderbilt in the SEC to an Alabama in 2 years. That's just not going to happen. You got to recruit. You got to put the infrastructure. You got to have this coaching staff in place. So it is a lot of unrealistic expectations going on, especially when you're talking about building a program. You at least need 4 or 5 years to build a solid program. And that's just not enough. America doesn't have the attention span. Fans don't have the attention span to wait 5 years, let alone 2 years.
Breaking news: Aaron Judge just hit 62.
Wow.
So what does that mean for people like Cousin Todd who doesn't know what that means?
Basically, he broke one of the home run records. I guess you could say he's for the AL. He got past Roger Maris, but he didn't break the ultimate home run record, which is in the home of Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
But since so many people don't like Barry Bonds, they try to treat other home run records as if they're significant.
Yeah,
So you're talking about baseball while we were talking about college football. Wait a minute. You're talking about baseball and we were talking about college football. I didn't even.
It is history.
We like
It is
to mix
history.
it around.
That's like a sports.
The show is at that, so I figured all of y'all been kind of saturated.
Yeah, and we need to mix it
We
around.
just care that the Phillies made the playoffs.
Yeah.
And the
Nobody
Phillies-
cares about Todd saying that hockey's going to be great for tennis. You sound
What?
like Todd, Nas.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, moving
I'm just
on.
saying,
The Phillies
Niggas
are.
fought it all week.
Phillies are in the playoffs.
That's right. Phillies are in the playoffs, and if they keep up what they're doing, I think they will win the Super Bowl.
So Nas, how's the Phillies doing against the Atlanta Braves?
I mean, I don't think you really want to have that conversation. But honestly, it was dope that y'all were able to rally, even with Bryce Harper being out for so long, and come back and make the playoffs. Nola pitched the gym yesterday. I mean, with the pitching y'all have, if y'all, get a little hitting, y'all can do something in the playoffs. Like, y'all not, y'all are a good team. I'll put it like that. Bryce Harper can get hot and things can go right. Schwarber hit 2 last night. Like, things can go right. But the Braves, come on now. Come on now. That's defending champion Braves.
Are you saying it's going to be a repeat this year? You claiming it?
Come on, man. It's still Atlanta. You know I can't do that.
The last minute, yeah. So we'll see. I mean, once you get one, it's you could become title town really quick. So hopefully, you keep it going.
All right. So, I want to talk about, we're still in sports, but Oklahoma, look at my screen I'm sharing with you.
Who? Oh.
The state of Oklahoma. The state of Oklahoma. If you look at this. Where is it? Okay. Oklahoma sports biological sex affidavit raises questions, according to AssociatedPressNews.com. It is an article, written by, let me scroll back up, Cliff Brunt, and it was written yesterday. And he says that this one particular child was nearly held out of playing this season because his parents objected to the biological, I don't know why my screen keeps doing that, sorry, to the biological sex affidavit. Oklahoma public school athletes from kindergarten to college are now required to submit in order to participate. The form, part of a law, says it's aimed at ensuring girls and women's teams allow only cisgender females, and asks what sex a student was at birth. States' rights, right? States can do this, Keith. And why is that important, Keith, or why should it be upheld in Oklahoma?
Well, it's important because it actually codifies the laws of nature based on our Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal by God and therefore have an equal obligation to treat others the same. So that is the standard by which America should be governed. And that's the standard. That is our structure. When the structure comes down, then your defenses fall down and you are easily overcome. So we've got to keep our defenses strong. We got to keep our structure, our moral structure. And that's why that is important.
Now,
so biological. I don't care what these other guys are going to say contrary. I know what I'm saying is
the
a fact.
that you just
this
said,
is America. We could have an equal debate on this.
and the fact that you just said, and I know you can't hear yourself, all men are created equal is discriminatory in and of itself.
No.
Not all people
God created
are created equal.
No.
Why not all people?
Me, Stephen, me, you, Aguna,
Who didn't
Nas,
create Stacy?
all of us.
Stacy isn't equal to you, correct?
That's
She is
semantics, Todd. That's just
Ma'am,
semantics.
ma'am, all men.
That
That is deliberate. That's
I'm talking
deliberate.
about-
When
I'm
white
talking about
men
nature.
speak,
I'm
they
talking
All
about
speak
people are
deliberately.
included when they say
And-
all men.
No,
I'm
ma'am.
talking about nature.
They meant all men because they didn't even give women the right to vote.
No, they
I know.
did.
Yeah,
All right.
What happened
So-
when they did?
Women voted.
Is this really
Look
an
what
issue
happened
though?
when they
This is one of
did.
those things.
What happened?
This is one of those things where you make up an issue, you make it an issue, you get people to chime in on, then you pretend to solve the issue.
Yeah,
then
and there
everybody's
is no
worked up about
issue.
it as if
As if there's an
everybody's having
issue.
this problem.
Let's look at the demographics for Oklahoma and how many of these children would actually qualify.
What is
About
this?
3.
So what's that really about? I mean, it's all
state
this is all red meat. This is all red meat to gripe about.
Yeah.
You got people coming on here to gripe about it as if it's really a problem.
This is just basically gonna be a raggedy bill to get the morons excited. But how it's gonna play out is what do we call those parents that bring the kids to the auditions and all that stuff? What do we call those parents?
Stage parents, you mean? Like people,
Exactly. Well, not necessarily stage parents,
but sports parents, parents that, yeah, we know what you mean.
These people are going to abuse this law by challenging the organization of players who they think shouldn't make it. If you all remember, they used to do this in the JFL with bigger kids. They said, that kid, we didn't see a birth certificate. There's no way that kid should be playing in this age group. This is going to be that times 11, especially for like women's basketball, women's soccer. Like, parents are going to abuse this, and the only people who are going to be traumatized are the children.
They just don't want boys competing against girls because it's not fair.
Where is this actually happening?
No place.
Where is this actually happening? I mean, is this really a problem? Is my thing.
It is.
Well, it has been a concern in college sports, and I guess they're saying it has been a concern somewhat. In primary and secondary school.
I can raise concern and then only have one case in which it's happening in the whole United States of America.
That's right.
But it's going to be enough for the pundits and everybody to chime in on and create the scare tactic.
Well, they
should never happen. It's happened a lot more than once. It should never happen.
I never said it happened only once, but is it proportionate to the amount of students that we have out there? Is it proportionate to is it an actual problem? Or is it a concern that some crazy soccer mom or somebody came up with in order to get people revved up about it?
Exactly.
Or to give the pundits on shows, especially particularly on the right for some reason, all this woke, anti-woke stuff.
Oh, sure. They don't even know it means to be woke. Yeah.
Anti-woke is good.
Yeah, it's hey.
And when
you replace a demographic of people in there, maybe Jewish or black, you go right back to Nazi Germany on that one, buddy.
That's right. And
that's
what I thought,
not to mention, we're still talking about kids, and how invasive is this testing? Would you really want to subject your child to that?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
And I thought Nas was
creating a problem
earlier when Nas was speaking about
their bodies.
All right, we're going to let Todd talk.
Never
Wait a minute. Todd hasn't really talked. Go ahead, cousin Todd.
That's okay. I was just going to say, I thought Nas was going to, when he was trying to find an example, I thought he was going to say when the white people would take their children to see lynchings.
What? What does that have to do with anything we're talking about? Aguna, would you let your boys compete with girls?
I mean, that
He did actually. He did last Sunday. They had a flag football game.
We can't talk about
and
anybody's
it was
children.
girls against
We don't talk
boys.
about people's
They had
children.
girls on the other team,
Uh-huh.
so he competes against them.
Uh-huh. Keith, how do you feel now, dum-dum?
Well,
Yeah, but that's soccer. That's soccer. That's not MMA.
That's soccer. That's not
football.
swimming.
No, it wasn't. It was
Swimming.
flag football, by the way. But he has done it in soccer.
Or flag football, of course. Flag football is
Steven.
not.
How do you feel now, dum-dum?
Flag football doesn't matter. It's not.
Oh, of
it's
course
not.
it
Right,
doesn't.
so let me share my
Legal.
screen again.
Boys and men
He
are
said
stronger
sport.
than
He
girls.
said sport. That's a sport.
Right.
So
There
let's
are
talk
gender
about this
neutral
U.S.
sports.
soccer.
How about pickleball?
U.S. soccer.
It's a sport. Man.
Naj,
If
you did
curling
just
is a
mention the
sport,
U.S.
soccer is a sport. It's a sport.
soccer. If you look at this, the ESPN.com article by Jeff Carlisle, who is the U.S. soccer correspondent, 11:19 a.m. Eastern Standard Time today, an investigation commissioned by the U.S. Soccer Federation and conducted by former U.S. Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates was released yesterday. And it includes revelations that are sure to send shockwaves throughout women's soccer and raise tough questions about accountability and player safety. The focus of this report is on 3 coaches in the National Women's Soccer League who have been accused of serious sexual misconduct and abuse. Former Racing Louisville coach Christie Holly, former Portland Thorns coach Paul Riley, and former Chicago Red Stars coach Rory Dames. It sheds new light on the alleged misconduct by these 3 coaches, as well as the repeated failures by team owners, the U.S. soccer officials, and others to heed warnings and complaints from players about them. This is systemic abuse, and the president of the United States Soccer Federation calls this report a first step towards change. Do we really need this to change, or do we need to say something when we see something, Cousin Todd?
Of course you say something when you see something.
Stephen.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Todd. If you see something that's irregular, you should say something or investigate it further and then say something, see what's going on to take care of people who are vulnerable. I agree with Todd.
Keith, these abuses by these coaches, it'd be different. It wouldn't be right, but it would be different if it was one coach. But they're mentioning multiple coaches that are doing this. What is wrong with these people taking advantage of these athletes?
Well, there's factions that go on all the time, and people join in with these groups, and just like a mob would form. We have
just like QAnon,
like Antifa mobs. But this kind of tells me something. Based on our conversation that we had just a few minutes ago, I really understand now why the reports have said, and these are reports, statistics, I can get them to you later if you want them. They say that testosterone levels in males are lower now than they were generations ago.
Oh, of course you are interested in that, aren't you?
Because of processed food and those types of diets and all that other stuff.
Yeah, but
genetics.
there's something.
And because of shots.
And because of
COVID. It's because of COVID vaccine.
And
before COVID.
In fact, you know what?
Before COVID.
It's all Dr. Fauci.
Those shots are not good
Let's
for you.
blame Dr. Fauci and Hunter Biden and his laptop.
Well, why wouldn't you blame Dr. Fauci? If you read the book, you would blame Dr. Fauci.
He did it. He's the reason why all this gender stuff is going on.
The lack of man.
And it's all on Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah, and it's the reason why Bruce Jenner had a sex change operation.
Yeah, that's right.
Did he actually go ahead with the beans and the Franks? Did he actually do it?
Yeah. When you're a misogynist, it's hard to focus on the topic when that topic centers women.
That's right. That's right. And it's always peculiar how heterosexuals are so interested in these homosexuals.
I see it.
Let's create another
like,
problem.
Why are you interested, Stephen, in whether or not Bruce Jenner had his anatomy taken off? Why are you so interested in that?
I just want to know if he was.
You're
if he
just
was
curious,
100%
huh?
full
You're just
force
curious.
involved in it. If he actually really did it.
And
But
Keith,
you
you're
know,
curious
I
too,
don't believe
aren't
he
you?
did it because Bruce Jenner
I
said he
know.
still likes women. So I believe he kept his junk
why are we
intact.
even talking about this?
Well, the boys
I don't
are
know.
interested.
Bruce
They're very
Jenner,
curious.
Bruce Jenner just
Look at
did
Steven.
it.
Look at Steven's
The
getting
only
into
reason
it.
Bruce Jenner did it was for publicity. It's
Did he get
popular.
paid?
Okay, so getting back to
God bless America.
initially asked, when you look at this league and the abuse that went on there, the thing that sticks out is power dynamics. When people can abuse subordinates without any repercussions, that kind of stuff can fester, especially in a small league that's kind of a back page league. This is not like a major sports league. This is a back page type of thing. So the bureaucracy is probably not as strong. The ability to fine and really go after people is probably not as strong. Now, on the flip side to that is when you have investigations into groups like this who don't have the funds like the NBA or the NFL, they can't hold you at bay and try to cover up and do their own investigation and then give you what you want as far as the story. So we're going to see a lot of lawsuits with this. Some people are going to go to jail. Like, this is going to be a really bad thing.
But we're seeing this. We're seeing this
good
across
that it
different
get brought out.
leagues. You know, people are starting to report this across different leagues. When we see this happen with, former Boston Celtics coach Ime Udoka, you know what I mean? As people talked about that, they said, "Hey, this is not the first time this has happened. What makes his case different than all the others?" So we see there's been abuse of power.
Yeah, but the Udoka thing is more of a one-off, though. This is not like something that's rampant around the NBA. Now, if you say the 80s, yes, I understand. But post Donald Sterling, every NBA team revamped not only their guidelines, but what employees cannot do. The dating process there, you have to kind of declare to HR, and then they can choose if they want to keep you in that, in the same facility, working together and everything else. But the NBA is kind of up to date, similar to corporate America.
I don't think they're
in that situation. Was he married? He was married. He wasn't married to Nia Long, right?
No.
He was just
He's not married
a management position dating an
sexual,
employee.
Sexual misconduct and racist statements. They just made him sell his team. And that dude's probably going to get $5 billion for selling the Phoenix Suns and Phoenix Mercury.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Well.
So I want to talk about first our thoughts and prayers to everyone who was affected by Hurricane Ian. Horrible, horrific hurricane that destroyed a great part of Florida. But Cousin Todd, you did mention to me that you thought it was interesting. What was your comment, Cousin Todd?
How DeSantis is begging for money now from Joe Biden. But when Chris Christie was in the same situation, he said no. DeSantis said no, don't give him anything. And mind you, Chris Christie was a Republican. And so was DeSantis. They're so dirty until DeSantis would drown his mother in spit if he thought he could get any closer to being president. He is rotten to the core. So now, and the Republicans are not going to go against him as they should. And nor are the Democrats, because we recognize, Keith and Stephen, when a tornado happens, people have to be rescued. People have to...
Hurricane.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So people have to be rescued. So people are going to need monies. But Keith said, well, let them do what they got to do. I don't think the government should step in and bail people out. So
no, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
So Keith, what did you say?
I certainly didn't say what Todd said. I said, and by the way, DeSantis.
What did you say?
DeSantis. Wait a minute. DeSantis has no authority. He has no authority to tell another state
when he was in the Congress.
No.
He wasn't
anyway,
always.
that. I'd have to verify that he actually said that, and he
I
has
think
no.
he voted against the aid package
Oh,
too.
I would also.
He had voted against the aid package many years ago because it was filled with pork, and he believes pork is
No,
pig is a
ma'am.
filthy
That
animal.
was
So he don't
strictly.
like
I think it was
pork in his
emergency
bills.
funding.
That
It
was
emergency
strictly.
funding.
Yes.
It was
To
pork
give
and it
Chris
was pork.
Christie money
No, it
because
wasn't
Chris
pork, it was
Christie is the
direct
one that
to
says
This
Hurricane
is
DeSantis was
this
dirty.
is something that hit
What I'm saying-
Florida like it's never
Yeah,
hit
Stacey,
before.
finish
But
what I
even
was-
still, even
That's what
let's play for
Sandy
example,
was.
even if it was pork in it, who cares? I mean, let's help people.
But it
you're gonna put
wasn't.
against
So much
something
pork
that,
Chris
in it,
Christie-
it wasn't
has to be
going to help
100%.
people. It was. If you look at it,
Right,
from
see,
where
there
it
you
was,
go.
it wasn't going to help people.
Oh,
People
stop
right
it.
near
Hurricane
need
was-
help.
Yes, it
This
was.
is-
Christie
this is
asked
how
for
d-
it.
The White House
And
is
he's a
working with
Republican.
DeSantis. This has been a really good thing. Only thing people like Todd is trying to do is discredit DeSantis because he's scared of him. Because the people are on his side. They're not on Todd's side. They're on
No,
DeSantis'
I mean,
side.
No,
That's why
it's really about.
That's why Todd and the left-wing media has to put DeSantis down, is because
Can we have an
on
adult
top of
conversation
things.
about
He's
this?
trying to make
Can we have an
things
adult
better.
conversation? Let's look at what
We
we're talking
are.
about. DeSantis was part of one of the largest expansion of government in the state of Florida. Remember, he's sitting you're sitting here complaining about government till you need it. He's looking at expanding
not.
government when it comes to CRT. He looked at expanding government when he capitulated to the power companies in Florida so that as an individual homeowner, and I have a house in Florida, I used to be able to put solar panels on my house and be energy independent for the electric companies. Now the electric companies are taking that right away from you as an individual homeowner because the energy lobbyists pressured DeSantis to do so. So let's not sit here and make it seem as he's some great conservative rescue. He's expanded government.
He is a great
He's
conservative.
created more
conservative,
bureaucracy.
and you're scared to death of him.
Look,
You're scared to
you don't
death
live in
of him.
Florida. I am a Florida. I
don't care if you live in
so I know
Florida.
about
You're
these
scared
politics.
to death of him. You're
I
a
have the right
Washington,
to
D.C.
complain about it
man
because my
who lives in
taxes,
Florida. You're
my
scared to death
taxes
of
go
him.
to the state of Florida. Yours doesn't. You're in your basement complaining because you don't even know anything about Florida politics. I can speak on this. Isn't this what Keith says? You can't talk about California because you're not here. I know about Florida politics. DeSantis is looking for a national stage. He does a lot of stunts and publicity to promote himself. And right now he's coming hat in hand to the federal government because he needs the aid. Again, he voted against hurricane aid in the past when it came to New Jersey. Again, trying to be this conservative. So he's a chameleon trying to adjust his position based on what's opportunistic for him. He's a politician, right? So you went from Trump, who wasn't a politician, and now you're trying to defend DeSantis, who's being a politician, and you're still making excuses for him.
Well, I bet you like that tax in your Florida state too. I bet you enjoy that. It'll be better than where you are now.
I like my tax. No, I don't, because what DeSantis wanted to do was he wanted to eliminate the zone around Disney and actually increase my taxes in Orange County where I have a residence. So I was going to actually get my taxes increased so the taxes in Florida will be higher than here in Virginia because he wanted to do a publicity stunt with Disney that he didn't even have the power to do.
So has
But Mike, so let me ask. So Keith, let me ask you this.
The people in that district have to vote on
Keith,
it.
let me ask you this.
It was employed by
let me ask you this, Keith. It was horrific what happened to the people and the property, and oh my goodness, going into Sanibel Island in Florida from Hurricane Ian. But my question, Keith, is why would DeSantis vote against Hurricane Sandy and then turn around and ask for aid for Ian? And at the same time, just a few weeks ago, where's the money that he spent to send all those political people from Venezuela up to Martha's Vineyard? I mean, can he use some of that money he spent to send the people from Florida to Martha's Vineyard as a stunt to help? You know, isn't he wasting money by that stunt instead of using that money to help his residents of Florida? Keith, this was for Keith.
Well, let me answer it this way. If he had not asked for money to help the people, is there anybody on this show who would not have criticized that? So anyway, I'll start with that.
That's not logical.
For two,
right. It is logical.
No, it's not.
Said there are minority communities that are going to get the money. but she didn't. She left out white communities. Now there are blacks and whites who live together, and I'm sure Aguna is a black man. He must live with other whites and other blacks. So how could they distinguish white from black? What's this thing about equity?
I don't understand. What is your question? What is your comments, Keith?
Simple question.
My comment: Do you live? Is your
What
house?
is wrong with you?
Is your house in a neighborhood where it's just all black or all white?
Look, man, I don't know where you're trying to draw a line here, but it's not making a lot of sense. Well, are you trying to say that there's a woman that tried to distinguish between black and white in Florida in order to give black people money?
No, he's talking about Vice President Harris. Well, Keith, you're talking about Vice President Harris.
I thought we were talking about DeSantis. Is this the part of the show where Keith is trying to get into white man's heaven again? Is this that part of the show? Okay, I get it. Go ahead, Keith.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the discussion
It is the
about
best heaven.
it's over.
I'm sure you would agree with that.
We already exhausted that. I mean, I said to Stacey, in response to Stacey, I said, if DeSantis had not asked for money to help those people, would he be criticized? And the answer is yes. So what do you expect?
What do you can't not ask for it. But the point,
but that's not a point.
Is if you have a government,
he's trying to be a leader, he should.
When a national disaster happens, you have to have what? All hands on deck. So you put your 5 in, so to say, when it happens to someone else. And then when it happens to you, you would expect the same treatment. So the point is his hypocrisy. So why you're trying to avoid that instead of just saying,
I'm not trying to.
He was being a hypocrite. Let's say he was being a hypocrite.
And Chris Christie is a Republican.
He was being a hypocrite.
Did not ask for federal money. With
Chris Christie is a Republican. Oh, move on, Stacey.
Yeah, I gotta move on.
Yeah, because Keith doesn't know what he's talking about, and Steven
you can't
certainly
admit when
doesn't.
someone is wrong. Therefore,
no.
I don't know if you're telling the truth.
Is there a topic? I'm just wondering.
So Keith, I want to show you. Keith, I want to show you because you said to me, you didn't see where Governor DeSantis did not voted against this. This is the Tampa Bay Times. It says DeSantis, a newly sworn in congressman. Let me make this bigger. A newly sworn in congressman was one of 67 House Republicans who voted against the bill. DeSantis said he sympathized with victims and that those with flood insurance should have their claims paid. But he said that allowing the program to increase its debt by another $9.7 billion with no plan to offset the spending with cuts elsewhere is not fiscally responsible. And this is from, I'm going to show you where it's from. This is from
fiscally responsible
Tampa Bay.
In the middle of a disaster.
Tampa Bay Times. Fact-checking comments about Rubio and DeSantis votes against Hurricane Sandy aid. It was written by Amy Sherman, PolitiFact staff writer, published yesterday, updated yesterday. There are the facts. Keith, now you saw
Steven, both of you.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay,
what do you say, dum-dums?
What the turnaround was for the vote when they actually went ahead and conceded and decided to vote for aid. Because that space of time led to what? How many people had to suffer because they wanted to pull a political stunt?
So you're going all the way back to 2013, and now you're going to say
yes,
that what's going on now? Are you trying to say that DeSantis should not get the money?
Is your records.
A snake in 2013 is a snake today, right? So you go back when they talk about Biden and the crime bill that his constituents wanted, and people were supporting. Even black people were supporting the crime bill.
I'm asking you.
Go back to Biden's record, but we can't go back to DeSantis's record.
I'm asking you a question, gentlemen. Are you saying that DeSantis, because of what he did then, okay? I admit
you said he didn't do that.
Because he did that then, it should be done to him today the same way. And those people should not get paid.
No, not that it should be done.
He should be accountable. He should come out and say, hey, you know what? I was wrong.
Willing to put people either in danger or in lack of aid that was forthcoming because he wanted to score political points. And you should look at that as a mark of his character.
Yeah, because if he wants to do that for that situation, here's the thing. If he does it for that situation, what's stopping him from doing it today? You can see it's
Well,
in his nature to do
because
that.
Florida
does political points.
Florida had more
migrants,
devastation.
sending asylum seekers to Martha's Vineyard is a political stunt. He did that today.
And he
Back
wasted
then, he did a
$12
political
billion.
stunt, trying to push ideology in the middle of a disaster. That's a political stunt.
That's
there's
what
no
it's
reason why you should
called.
be sitting here talking about fiscal responsibility when people are out of power, out of homes, and anything like that. You
So the
figure it out
claims-
later. Let's get all hands on deck.
So he said the claims ought to be paid. That's what Stacey showed.
Oh,
Claims.
shut up.
Claims.
Move on, Stacy,
He
because
said
that's
that's
private.
be paid.
That's
Well,
private.
what about water to areas that need clean
Right.
water? What about power?
I
What about
understand,
getting
like,
people
you can't go back
roads
on
cleared?
anything and you have to always support these people, but come on.
I mean,
No,
come
I
on.
said
He's talking about the
claims-
claims. What about the infrastructure that needs to put in?
Yeah,
be
those
put
are
in
people
place
that
for the
had
claims to be
insurance.
He
filed?
Yeah.
said
He
the
was against
claims
all of
ought to
that.
be paid, and he said the spending ought to be cut. The claims ought
But
to
you
be
need
paid.
to spend money to get to the areas where the people are stranded to file the claims. That makes no sense.
Ought to
This
be
is
paid.
all
sense
about
in that
trying to
situation.
discredit DeSantis. Keith, don't buy into it. This is all
Again,
about
no, we're just
discrediting
talking facts.
DeSantis.
Now you're trying to
Because
pivot.
he is kicking
The
their
fact that
ass.
He was a hypocrite. He
DeSantis
was
is
Listen
kicking
to
their
this crazy
ass.
person.
So they have
Look,
to say
look,
anything they
look,
can
look,
right
Steven, it's
now.
so crazy.
Grow up,
DeSantis
Steven.
is
Say
kicking
it
the
was
left
wrong.
ass. That's why, Keith. That's why this
I
is
know.
a big deal right now. They're
No,
grasping at straws. They
Let's
have
look at it
nothing.
at the
They are
policy level,
weak.
Stephen.
They are
Let's not
weak.
go to the first
They have
grade.
nothing.
I know you want to go to
They're
the
going
first
to
grade.
lose. They know they're going to lose.
They're weak.
Let's mature
Political
the
situation.
conversation if you can.
Get him, Stephen.
He is a hypocrite.
Get him,
Stephen,
Stephen.
stop
Joe,
going to
let's talk
kindergarten.
about Joe Biden for once on this show.
What do you
How
About
good
Joe
is he?
Biden.
Do you support Joe Biden? Do you support Joe
Oh my
Biden?
God.
Kamala
Did he just
Harris?
bring up Hunter Biden or his
Let's
Let's
talk
support
about
these
Joe
people.
Biden.
Let's
No,
talk
you
about.
don't.
Let's
talk
talk
about
about Hunter
let's talk
Biden.
about the truth now.
Let's talk about
Joe
Barack
You're
Biden.
full of
Obama.
crap, and you're obvious. Keith and I know. Anybody watching this show
Stephen,
knows.
man, hey,
you're
man,
full of
look,
crap.
Stephen.
Get out of here.
DeSantis
Please,
is awesome.
Stephen.
Steven,
He's a
say
he's
no
great
to
for
drugs.
Florida.
Oh
And
my
more
gosh.
states should have people like DeSantis representing them because he's for the people.
How is
Okay,
he for
what
the
policy
people?
did he pass that you support, Stephen?
I support everything he does.
I support
No matter
him.
what.
Well, there we go.
You don't. Y'all don't. because
I
you're
support him.
Marxists.
I am. I've got my screen. I'm moving
Love
on.
this country
Hey,
like Keith and I do.
DeSantis is Jesus.
Keith and
I
I love
support
this
whatever
country.
he
You
does.
don't. You want to turn
Okay,
it.
I'm sorry. I've got to move on. I'm sorry. Look at this screen. This is CNN.com. Update at 7:37 p.m. today. U.S. and South Korea test fire missiles in continued response after North Korea launch. North Korea launched missiles that went over Japan. So the United States and South Korea launched 4 missiles off the east coast of the Korean Peninsula this morning now, which is Wednesday morning there, according to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff. The test was an ally's second exercise in under 24 hours, following a provocative test launch Tuesday by North Korea, which fired ballistic missile without warning over Japan in a significant escalation of its weapons testing program. This is serious. While Russia is declaring victory over Ukraine, but Ukraine's making waves waves against Russia on Ukraine's soil, you have another communist, North Korea, launching missiles over Japan without
wait a
warning.
minute. Okay, Russia's not communist. For one, let's stop.
Russia's not communist, and North Korea is not communist.
If you're North Korea and your best way of getting funds is another act of defiance while the U.S. is tied down with the Ukraine situation and everything going on, you fire off a missile, you get your check, you get whatever aid, and then we go back to square one. It's not going to escalate into anything. Don't let these people start telling you North Korea is coming to get us. Like, no, this is simple procedure they do, and they get aid because of it. So, timing is everything.
Stephen?
That's all this is.
Yeah, I have a friend that lives in Japan, and they're very upset by all of this. They're not asking for any of this. They want to live their lives in peace. And you know what? Japan has suffered bombs in the past. They don't want any of this. It's not good. It's not good for the stability over there for anybody. So it's a really bad thing what North Korea did. And if you just poo-poo it, then you're just full of crap. You don't know what's actually going on over there. Kim is insane.
Yeah, but you just
at least Donald Trump
DeSantis.
He talked to him and tried to calm him down a little bit. These people are not sane. And to do what they did over Japan, and I think it went over them and went in the ocean. It's not a good thing at all. It's a ballistic missile. It was without notice or provocation. It's not a good thing. This is a very bad thing that happened. That this is not good for that area.
I never said it
How
was
can you not
good.
understand
All
that?
I said was this is how it typically plays out. And in this case, where we got everything going on, I don't know why anybody's surprised.
And let's be for
They
real.
think they'll be getting aid
Let's be for real.
in order to get them to stop shooting the missiles off.
North Korea, if they do the wrong thing, which is shoot a missile at Japan, not over it in the ocean, which probably is the most accurate they would be anyway, they would be destroyed. They would get destroyed. We would wipe North Korea off. The regime would be done with. And to say that Trump calms him down, again, this shows the weakness of Trump as a leader. If someone's saber rattling and you go and engage them and elevate them, again, he elevated them to the world stage in which a U.S. president stepped into the demilitarized zone and acknowledged, yes, you rogue regime should be at the stage or at the table with me, the number one economy and the number one democracy in the world. If you think that is showing leadership and that capitulating to a dictator is good, then you're the Yahoo that needs work on, because I would take a missile over Japan any day than have a U.S. president step foot in North Korea with no
Did they do it? Did they do this when Trump was in office, or did
Let's kiss his ring. He wrote a love letter. They were writing love letters.
He gave it to him with no preconditions.
No preconditions. I'm going to North Korea as the number one democracy in the world. I'm going to go kiss your ring and bow down to you. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Biden is like, man, get out of here.
You don't know why. Maybe he's great in bed.
He never fired a single rocket when Trump was in office, and you know it. And
yes, he did.
Yes, he did. What are you talking about?
He did a lot of drills when Trump was in office.
No U.S. president would ever go into North Korea and acknowledge that country exists. That is a weakness. That is a weakness of leadership by even acknowledging that they exist.
That's not a communist country. What kind of country?
No American president would have.
It's a dictatorship. It's a dictatorship. Read your history book.
It's
Kim
communist.
Jong-un is the ultimate leader. Whatever.
They have a hard time trying to say country, and also he's a dictator. So you guys kind of got to suss that one out.
So
if y'all want to make your charge, make your charge.
So let's talk about cousin Todd.
Adult conversation.
Okay, so cousin Todd has two adult conversations. One, former President Trump thanked Ginni Thomas for sticking to his big lie when she was questioned by the January 6th committee. Todd, what is your adult conversation about that?
Okay, your microphone is doing that thing again. Ginni Thomas, we should start chanting that old Negro spiritual. Lock her up. Lock her up. She.
I mean, we turn it yelled for less, right?
Yeah, she was rotten to do that, and to pretend like, oh no, I don't talk to my husband about anything like that is ridiculous. That's her best friend, Tom. That's her best friend. So of course she talks to him about everything.
What are you talking about?
What am I talking about?
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Y'all know why he's called him Tom. Don't try to act like y'all don't know.
Tom, just put it this way: Tom's in white man's heaven eating ambrosia. Just put it that way.
Yeah, and so she had no business. Do you know she told them to send fake electors? That was going too far.
Yep.
Now, if she in fact thought, oh, there was some kind of fraud going on.
Where do you get this information?
Which she's not smart. Listen, what I mean to say is she's not dumb. See, people like Stephen
Where do
and
you get
Keith
your
are
information?
dumb.
How do
She's
you know
not. She's and
He watches
Google it
the
right
View.
now, it's like-
He watches
she's
the
married to a
View.
judge, and she knows better. She knows that 60 judges threw that case out. She knows that. And so for her to believe,
defense fund.
for her to believe that the election was stolen, with what facts? She's not dumb. She knows she needs facts. She's married to a judge. There's no proof of that.
I got facts.
So for her to tell them to send fake electors, she ought to be held accountable for that.
I got facts, and she has facts. I have a fact. The fact is the Constitution was violated when the states did not change the election laws. It was the commission and governors of those states, not the legislature. Thank you, Stephen. They don't
They
see that.
wrote a fake letter.
So do you really want to hang the hat of the election lie on a technicality versus having the people who voted?
There's
And
no-
many
there's
of
no
the
lie about the
people
election.
who voted
Yes.
now voted absentee. It was
Yes,
a once in a
because it
lifetime
had to be done
pandemic
right.
going on.
It
Okay.
had to be done
He
right.
has the
Yeah,
power
the
based on
pandemic
the
was
state
created
constitution
to
do it.
to
There
destroy
was no
the
laws
election.
broken. And here's the
The
thing.
pandemic was
What you're saying
created.
is true, Keith and Stephen. It's what you're saying is true. Why wasn't it challenged in court? You had
Because they-
$250
Because
million
nobody-
worth.
Because
Challenge.
the system
Who's
is
nobody?
corrupt.
Don't
Because the
say
system
nobody.
is corrupt.
Name me who didn't.
Yeah.
Name me who
Donald
didn't.
Trump elected those
Because
judges.
the whole system is corrupt.
They reject.
The
There's
whole system is
Republicans-
corrupt. Okay, so the
Okay, I'm going to stop you all there. I want you to look at this article and then I'll let you go, Aguna. But Keith, look at this article I've shared with you. It says Trump thanked Ginni Thomas for sticking to his big lie when she was questioned by the January 6th committee, unlike other weak and stupid people. This was written on the Business Insider, written by Taylor Simone Mitchell, October 1st, 10:42 p.m. Aguna, you can comment, and then I want Keith to comment about seeing that article. Real quick, Aguna.
Yeah, real quick. So when you get these yahoos talking about election lies and trying to base technicalities of state legislating or executive rights that the state constitution of Pennsylvania, by the way, allows them to do, when you start getting into that type of stuff and you start trying to really unbake and asking Keith and Stephen to really explain themselves, you see where the story starts unraveling, right? They sit here and they've been talking about this for the last 2 years, yet $250 million of the election fraud fund or whatever was raised.
Yeah.
And somehow the system stopped it from happening, knowing that this is a capitalist country and people have been sued for less, people have settled for less, but $250 million, all the evidence in the world, they didn't submit it. How? So all these judges that Trump appointed were paid off and they didn't want to look at the stuff. So that is just crazy. And I like when you hear Keith and Stephen talk. Because the more they talk, the dumber we get, right? So you can hear their stories unraveling. Watch. Go ahead, Keith. Over to you.
They're evil. They're evil. They are lie.
Each state shall appoint in the manner as the legislature thereof may direct. Okay, the legislature did not direct. It was the commissioners and the governors of the states that directed.
So impeach the governor then. If he broke the law, if the governor broke the law, have him impeached.
A part of, sir.
And that should have been questioned. That whole thing. That whole.
Whoa. You skipped over the question.
And
which party were these state legislatures and governors a part of?
Vice President Pence, a Republican.
You're not answering the question, Keith. The Pennsylvania legislator is predominantly Republican, right?
That is
the Pennsylvania legislator is predominantly Republican. If he broke the law, if the governor broke the law by allowing absentee voting, that the window for absentee voting to be longer. Again, we're not talking about actual votes. These are actual votes, people.
I just read it.
They cast actual votes.
Okay, can you let him finish?
Hey, it was stolen because the time you could submit absentee ballots is extended is ridiculous. How about have a platform to run on that the people can get behind? How about how
we're gonna let Keith finish, and you got to be really quick, Keith. We're running out of time.
Why are you cutting him off just so this boy can talk crazy like he's on crack?
In such manner, I think you should mute them like you mute Stephen every time they talk. All right. Each
Stephen,
state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress. So that means that the legislatures.
If we go with what you're saying, what law was broken? What law was broken?
The election law, the time that elections would be over. In other words, that the election time would be over. They extended it.
And so, okay, so let me ask you this. So you know for a fact then, if they would have had the same amount of time to vote, again, we're having a global pandemic going on. So you're saying that, again, you're speculating that, hey, instead of 60 days, it's down to 30 days, people wouldn't have voted the way they did. So you're sitting here as a conservative, as a constitutional conservative, trying to say the reason why the Democrats won in Pennsylvania is because we allowed people to vote.
No,
that's your position right now.
Allowed the votes to go longer. In other words, people to go longer than.
We're talking about votes. You're talking about U.S. citizens voting. What are you really talking about? You say you're a constitutionalist, but you don't want people to vote.
State laws, just like
voting people should have access to voting. I don't care the time.
No.
Vote.
People
run on a good platform.
Voting. You don't vote.
Have a policy people can get behind. Stop looking at technicalities.
You hear what I said?
Okay, I'm out of time. I'm out of time with that.
Listening.
Remember low taxes? Remember that? Run on that. Don't worry about voting windows. That's ridiculous.
When the time is up, they should not
sound like
voting.
a nut, man. Come on.
No,
run on the platform.
Up, you're no longer voting. If you miss the time, if you miss the date or the time, then you should not vote.
So why haven't a lot of the Republican again, Youngkin in Virginia won because of absentee voting? They extended the same guidelines and they allowed people to vote early. That carried people to victory. People are going to vote how they want to vote.
He won because of assholes like you who are woke.
Woke. He won because he voted absentee.
You want to go to sleep?
You're wrong.
You don't want him to be woke. You want him to sleep, right?
I mean, they're woke.
Woke. How do you know I didn't vote for him?
Woke.
Sleep.
No, this is why Youngkin won because everybody was so woke.
I really like the background.
The people who went to the school boards, they were terrorists. The people who went to the school boards were terrorists, and they decided they were going to vote for Youngkin.
Stop. We're not scared. We're Americans. We're not scared. We're not scared.
Okay, I got to move on. This will be our roundtable. We have a lot to cover in the roundtable. We have a lot to cover. We're just going to get it all. Everyone's not going to be able to comment on all of it. But former President Trump made a few comments. If you look at my screen, he made racist comments on Elaine Chao, McConnell's wife. And, you know, I believe it was wrong, just like it's wrong when Cousin Todd says that Keith hates his mother. So according to this article by Murdy Zanga, written October 3rd, to 11 p.m. on USA Today, former President Trump's racist comment about his former Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, who is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell's wife, has drawn sharp criticism from some on the right. Trump used a racial slur in a post on his Truth Social website this past Friday, calling Chao McConnell's China-loving wife, Coco Chao. He also said McConnell had a death wish for backing Democrat-sponsored bills. Stephen, let's start with you.
Everybody know Coco. Everybody like Coco because we asked some Chinese if they like Coco. They said, yeah. So that's not racist.
The reason
Stephen, was that racist from former President Trump?
I don't know what Coco meant. That would make it racist. I don't know. Could you explain it to me, Stacey? What's racist about it? I don't know.
Well, the fact that let me make this.
Let me ask you this. You don't know that.
Well, I really don't know about why it's racist.
Maybe
racist people can figure out why things are racist.
Okay, so let me look at this article. He says China loving wife, Coco Chao, China loving wife. That's what he said.
She is a China loving wife.
She loves China.
Let me tell you, Stacey, I don't need any more. Let me tell you this.
I don't need no more. Get that off the screen.
Because McConnell is eyeball deep involved in China. McConnell is corrupt. His wife is corrupt. Everything they're doing in China is wrong, and it's hurting the United States. That's why when Aguna says
everybody's corrupt except Donald Trump.
McConnell is not a good Republican. He's not a good person.
Let him keep talking.
Just because you're a Republican don't mean you're good. You check into McConnell and his wife and see all the garbage that they have involved themselves in with China, and they are just as bad as anybody. Like Joe Biden is wrapped up. His son is wrapped up in China. This is the problem. You want to look for something.
You would talk about someone's wife.
Everything has to be racist with you. It's not racist.
If you have a problem with someone's husband, would you talk about their wife, Stephen? Would you do that?
What I'm saying is,
answer the question. Would you talk about someone's wife
China
if you had a problem
with the CCP? And this is what
you're not answering the question.
This is why McConnell lets everything go. We cannot be so intertwined with China.
Did you know that part? Maybe you didn't know that part.
Okay, so
did you know that?
I'm going to move on. Let me
what about
get
his
Keith.
kids. His kids have interest in China. What are you talking? Trump Jr.
Nas is trying to make a point.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nas.
His
Finish
tie
your
is
point real
made
quick,
in
Nas.
China. His tie is made in China.
If he knew that man's wife was of Chinese descent.
He was saying
Also,
it doesn't matter.
Did he know that Trump appointed her to a cabinet position?
I read
since
that.
He's saying she's so corrupt. And then the last part,
I know
of course, this, which is kind of simple. Did you ever think that Mitch is talking to some of the money people like the Mercers who may be thinking about not giving Trump some money? And we just saw a tantrum the other day with that little post on his fake Twitter.
Oh, that's interesting. That could be a possibility. That could be a possibility.
But how low have we sank as a society to even justify what he's doing?
You know, you're going to get.
Let's keep politics aside. I don't care about China right now. I don't care about any of the policy issues. We had
no, you don't.
From one of the previous leader of the free world, which Donald Trump was. He was a former president. Go so low as to insult someone's wife because he didn't agree with the legislative process. You know, Keith is on here all the way talking about the Constitution. Hey, the Constitution was founded in compromise. Legislatively, you have to compromise. You're not going to get 100% of what you want. So the fact that Donald Trump is articulating that you shouldn't work with the Democrats because of this, and that, and other means he doesn't even know or understand or even respect how democracies really work. No. You have to engage the other party and come up with solutions. And not insult someone's wife because
yes, he does.
All that crap that Stephen was saying about China and all this. You think Donald Trump has zero interest in China right now? You think
his daughter has 7 patents in China?
Right,
oh, you know everything about his financial records.
Well, yes, clearly I don't because he doesn't want to give up his tax records. But clearly, Uncle Keith and his pilgrimage to white man's heaven is going to allow us to make excuses for this guy.
That's right.
What about character?
And he always talks about people's wives. Remember, Ted Cruz's wife is ugly. Remember,
why are you talking about someone's wife? That's not leadership.
Because that's what he does.
That's not leadership. Why are we sitting here?
Remember, he said Ted Cruz's wife was white man's heaven. Implied it.
You don't know Jesus. Aguna thinks Jesus is the guy who cuts his grass.
He might think he's a tough guy, but say what you want to say is terrible, as I think Mitch McConnell is. He's probably the most effective politician of the past 50 years. And if you think he's going to let this go unchallenged and no problem, there's going to be some blowback on this. Like, he thinks
he's not Ted Cruz. He's not Ted Cruz. He's going to pick up the phone and make calls for Trump after he called his wife ugly. You're going to pick up the phone and make calls for this man?
No, I just want to say this one thing, if Stacey will let me. That Trump, obviously, our talk about Trump is very biased. We didn't even talk about Kamala Harris's statement that Stacey knows I wanted to talk about because everybody sort of co-opted.
Go ahead, talk about it. Go ahead, say it. You already said it. Go ahead. You already said it.
We're running over time.
Go ahead, say it. Say it, Keith.
Out of time.
Say it, Keith. Say it, Keith. Say it, Keith. Say it. Go ahead and say it.
I'll say it for him.
Time span, because it's just wrong.
You already said it, Keith. What you said, you already said it, Keith.
That's Stacey's sorority sister, by the way. That's Stacey's sorority sister.
That is my sorority sister. But Keith, you already did say that about the inequalities. What was your comment about Vice President Harris?
Harris, she talked about equity. She talked about equity with getting to minority communities, the monies that of those communities that suffered, getting to those communities. But she left out other communities that also obviously needed that help. And she specifically said people of color. She's talking about people of color. Now that to me is racist. That's a racist.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
26%. You're talking about Lee County, Florida. You're talking about Lee County, Florida, and 26% of the African Americans in that county live in poverty. All right, so to give extra money to be on the sheet, I think that.
Aguna, can you let him finish?
Let me
Go ahead.
Why do you keep letting him finish one at a time? And Aguna was talking.
Aguna goes on and on. What are you talking about?
But I actually make sense. I actually make sense.
When Trump said his China-loving wife, to me, that is not a racist statement.
Of course it wouldn't be to you, Tom.
Of course not, Uncle Ruckus. Uncle Ruckus was not going to finish about that.
China-loving or American-loving husband. If somebody says to my wife, your American-loving husband, that's Keith. That's me. That's me. That's me. I love America.
And the fact that you think that's an analogy.
And if he loves China, then that's fine. That's true.
Let's ask her. Let's ask her. You want to ask her?
You don't love America.
Okay.
That was a compliment.
You might love something else.
All right. We can't go on. We can't go on with this. Thank you. Thank you, Keith.
You're going to get to heaven, Keith. You're going to get there.
Wait a minute. Wait. You've got to let somebody rebut that, you crackpot. Go ahead, Nas.
I'm going to mute you for the whole show for calling me a crackpot. You will not call me a crackpot.
See, you always picking on
You go ahead, Todd. You got something to say?
See, you just called Stacey a crackpot, and then you're talking about Trump.
I know he ain't got nothing to say. All he's got is to
Giving
lash out at
money
people
or
because he
extra
knows
attention to people who need it.
He
is
knows
not.
he's wrong.
You guys,
No, it's not.
Let me move on.
Look, if you give,
It doesn't matter. Todd won't have anything to say because he called me a crackpot. Bye.
bye, Todd.
Bye,
You
Todd.
guys are,
oh man,
Todd's on the screen. I just muted him. So let me do this. We're running out of time. I want to share my screen about the Supreme Court. Our invitee was unable to join us, but we still need to talk about this and what the Supreme Court did today with Alabama. This will be our last topic. The Supreme Court leans towards Alabama in voting rights dispute, but several members of the court's conservative majority rejected the state's most aggressive arguments in defense of its congressional voting map. So this was written today by Adam Liptak at 2:06 p.m. In Supreme Court arguments on Tuesday, today, members of the court's conservative majority seem to be searching for a narrow way to uphold a congressional map drawn by Alabama lawmakers that a lower court had said diluted the power of Black voters, violating the Voting Rights Act. The court's 3 liberal members pushed hard to curb the damage to the law, which Justice Elena Kagan called one of the great achievements of American democracy. She added that in recent years, the statute has not fared well in this court. Let's start with Nas, then Keith, then Stephen, then Aguna, then Cousin Todd. What does this mean for the country? And will people have confidence in the Supreme Court because of this?
What did they do?
People have confidence in the Supreme Court. I think the people who are cheering the abortion ruling, those people have confidence in the Supreme Court, but the majority of the country, as we saw the rallies and protests against them, I don't think they will. And I'm really interested to hear what Aguna and Todd are going to say about this. But ultimately, when you're talking about the Voting Rights Act, remember, when you get these people to kind of justify these districts that have been gerrymandered, the thing that they throw out is, well, you know, in the original writings, these things did not take race into account. Like, that's their argument. They're saying race should not be a part of this discussion. Meanwhile, from what we all know from the Voting Rights Act and the gerrymandering, Jim Crow, black codes, and everything else that was done to either suppress or completely stop black people from voting. That is why you had to have federal intervention to stop them from doing that. So you can make the argument and make it race neutral, which is what they're doing, where they say, hey, you know, this has nothing to do with race. We just happen to be drawing these lines where all those black people are and slicing the vote into little swabs to where they don't matter as much. But we're not doing it because they're black. They just happen to be in those districts. So, you know, it's always been a thin, raggedy argument that kind of leaned on authority to be able to get away with it. But yeah, this is a failing of democracy.
Keith?
How are black people being stopped from voting? Is there a law or some kind of rule or a sign that says no blacks can vote?
Do you read the topic before the show? Do you read up a little bit?
I'm asking a question.
No.
Honest
Just
Well, you
said
just
black people
argue
stop
that,
voting.
the voting
Wait a minute, Aguna, wait a minute. This is the round table. It's Keith, and then you're out of time, and then it's Stephen.
Yeah, well, somebody answer this for me. How are black people stopped from voting these days? I'd like to know.
It's like 150 years of history that we'd have to pack into 30 seconds because you refuse to read. Like, how can I help you?
Oh, I'd like to know.
Okay, Stephen.
Jesus Christ.
Have any of you been stopped from voting? I haven't.
Stephen.
Yeah, I know people who were stopped from voting. I think it was 2016 when the Black Panthers stood up there in Philadelphia with baseball bats and wouldn't let people go to the voting booth. That's how you stop people from voting.
And you know that because you were there.
That's exactly right. There's no black people being stopped from voting. Maybe they said, oh, you have to have an ID. You have to bring an ID. And black people don't have IDs. Nobody on this show or anybody listening that's black has a driver's license. Nobody does, because that's discrimination. That's how they discriminate against black people, because they don't have an ID. So that's so wrong, but it's not true. Everybody has an ID. If you don't have a driver's license,
and everybody can count the marbles in a jar.
Okay, Nas, wait a minute. This is
How
his
much
round
did you pay for
table.
that driver's
have an
license?
ID,
This is his round table.
Cousin Todd doesn't have an
Did
ID.
you have to
because
pay
he's
for that
probably a
driver's
felon
license?
or something.
Okay,
Did you have
Aguna.
to pay for the driver's
Right.
license is the question.
Aguna.
Look, this all these yahoos on the show talking this nonsense. Anytime someone is trying to take away your ability to vote, it's un-American. You should be able to vote
Nobody's taking away your ability
ways
to vote.
we can. All right, it should be open. We should put the pressure on the politicians to have to come up with platforms and policies that favor us till we vote on them. Keith isn't an idiot. Hopefully not. He's pretending to be dumb on this topic because he knows that districting can disproportionate and can be diluted by the way it's district, so that it's all demographic, it's all analytics now. So they know how many people are registered.
All the districts favor the
each of these
Democrats.
counties. So if you divide that vote, it's just like taking away the vote because you're not holding the politicians accountable for appealing to a certain demographic or a larger demographic, therefore swaying their judgment. If you're continuing to be ruled by minorities or a certain demographic because you're drawing lines differently, that's what the problem is. We should be encouraging people to vote. Voting should be a holiday. We should embrace voting. We should make it open and equal for people to access voting. The whole ID thing, again, I think IDs, you should have an ID to vote. I agree with that. Then IDs should be free. Okay, they're not. You have to pay for them. Okay, you have to. That's an equation to a poll tax by having to. It's not free for people just to go and get an ID. They have to pay for that. Why should you have to pay to get an ID to vote? Voting should be equal and open to everybody. So yes, people are being prevented to vote by being discouraged from voting. So I answered your question. All this Black Panther Yahoo stuff and all this other stuff.
The governor of California.
Every week, Keith and Stephen come on this show and try to scare people. We're not scared. We just like laughing at you guys because you're pretty funny in some of the ignorant stuff that you say. That's very entertaining.
Thank you. Crackpot. Go ahead, Crackpot.
For the Supreme Court to step in, because that's one of the things you touched on, and take away women's right to an abortion. I'm just going to touch on this because next week I'll lay on it heavy. people don't realize that sometimes what happens in a pregnancy is it didn't come to, like, there's a case right now where a girl got into a fight.
Your time's up.
A girl got into a fight with another girl. Now, she was pregnant, and this girl was fighting her. And this girl pulled out a gun and shot the pregnant girl, and her baby died. Well, the girl who was once pregnant is now in jail. Doesn't make sense to you, does it? Yeah, you put your baby in harm's way, so you go to jail. That is how ridiculous. Another girl was on drugs.
Abortion.
And this girl was on drugs, and she was pregnant. She was taking drugs, and her baby died. Well,
you put your baby in harm's way when you abort it.
She went to jail because her baby died because she was on drugs. So when is this going to stop? How far are you going to take this thing? She's a dope addict. So, of course, she's getting high. The baby died, and they threw her in jail. So you have these extremists. This has got to stop. That's the bottom line. This has got to stop. And once they vote out these radicals, this will come to an end. And there is no excuse, Stephen, that you're trying to come up.
You're still going to have the Supreme Court.
I have a question for the future, our future shows.
Sorry, crackpot.
Can we talk more about the actual president?
Ma'am, no, ma'am.
Why?
Stephen, don't try to make excuses. You know that is ridiculous, those two scenarios I just gave you. So don't try to make excuses. You have to just say, yeah, that was outrageous. I don't understand that. Well, we're killing a baby.
Let's talk about.
These people didn't kill their children.
But Keith, to your point, you're not going to want to. You just want to talk about the president himself. You don't want to talk about policy. You don't want to talk about an in-depth conversation. You talk about the narrative and talking points. I embrace that. We can talk policy all day, but when we talk about conspiracy theories and scare tactics and this mythical left and all this other stuff, that's a waste of time.
I want to talk about policies. Challenge me.
I will, but Stacey keeps saving me. Stacey saves you.
Yeah, she does.
Stacey saves you. You're lucky. Consider yourself blessed.
But the problem is,
consider yourself blessed.
all Joe Biden pinata fetishes out there. This is probably not a good month for y'all as far as Joe Biden. He's kind of got some wins in his pocket right now. A couple months ago when you had the gas situation and you could hit him in the head with inflation, I'm sure you guys could have talked to somebody's get about that.
Our gas is almost $7.
But Nas, you're the problem is, Nas, all of those things don't matter to them. They're going to deny it anyway. They're going to deny the measures that the Fed have to do, regardless of who's in office, in order to curb inflation. They're going to deny that Joe Biden is doing a good job or has some political wins. They're going to downplay all that.
And they're going to deny the fact that it's a good idea to lower drug prices. I'm not on penicillin. I'm not on diabetes medication.
Not going to lower drug prices. And if you were going to criticize him, you bring up the student loan thing, which he backed down on, which is legit criticism you could have of him. Him saying COVID is over. Like, there's a couple things you could criticize him for.
Okay, and let's be real about the student loans. Is that really a big deal? Considering all the subsidies we do for farming, considering all the subsidies we do for veterans and all these other things that we pay for anyway, we're going to talk about $10,000 against people going to college.
They were worried about a legal challenge where the lenders could say it's unconstitutional if some of this so-called federal debt is being repaid by the federal government, but theirs is not being repaid. So the talk, I guess you could say online, is that they back down because of the threat of a legal challenge. That's what they're saying.
I mean, I think they could have been done in a little bit more productive way. I mean, I think if you should target public servants and teachers and people who really are doing a lot for the betterment of society as a whole, you should look at the type of degrees they're going after and stuff like that. There's a way they could have broken down a little bit more. But $10,000, I mean, there's other tax credits that other people are getting that are way more than that, and I'm not griping about. So for someone who's making
right.
$10,000,
so Aguna gets his mortgage deduction. I don't say as a single person, hey, he shouldn't be able to get a mortgage deduction. You know what I'm saying?
well,
Like, there are going to be bills that target specific people, which
but
is okay.
thanks to Donald Trump, that went away though. So my taxes actually went up because of
All right, so we're out of time. Thank you.
But can I say this to Aguna real quick though? But all that bill would have done was most of the people who are paying on interest, it would have taken a nice chunk out of their loan, so they could have paid down on principal every month instead of just throwing money on fire, paying on the interest. That's all it would have done. Because it's not enough.
Yeah, it's
at 10K to 20.
All right, to our first responders in our community, thank you. You make our lives livable. To our women and men of the U.S. military, all that you do, sacrificing your lives so that we are free to say whatever we choose. On the show, we are forever indebted. On behalf of Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republic.
Oh, your voice is doing that thing. On
really,
behalf
Keith?
of
The
Aguna,
constitutional
the Nigerian
conservative.
moderate Republican. Keith, the constitutional crackpot, constitutional conservative. Stephen, the Republican.
The independent thinker.
I mean, libertarian.
Where's your basement?
Independent
Go back
thinker,
to the
flip
basement.
flopper.
That's not your house, Stephen.
And my cousin Todd. Thank you, Nas, for joining us. We'll see you next week. Good night.